Philip Stoten. I'm here at Apex 2020, and this is the first edition of That Scoop Show. I'm joined by Ron Keith and Mike Konrad. Guys, thanks for joining me. We had dinner last night, and there was a couple of hours of really interesting chat there, but I wanted to distill down to a few issues.
I think we still left some world problems unsolved.
Yeah, we didn't fix it all.
There's a few left on the table that we didn't get to.
I thought we did pretty good. I think we made a good start. What I wanted to tackle today is kind of one big question or two big questions, and you can take it as a two-part or one. What's the biggest opportunity for the electronic manufacturing industry right now? And what's the biggest challenge or hurdle to moving forward? And we spoke about this. I gave you a bit of a heads up before we started, so I'm going to let you go first, Mike.
I'm going to give two answers, and they're both the same in terms of the biggest opportunity is the biggest challenge. And I think those two categories of opportunities and challenges are IoT and automotive. You can call automotive IoT, but it's a whole separate type of IoT. I think the opportunity is obvious. Cars are becoming much more electrified. They're becoming smart. I was in a conference the other day, and I forget, it was like 30% or more of the cost of a car is in electronic components now, in boards, things like that, not engines and wheels. That produces a huge opportunity, particularly now with electric cars, which have far more boards in them, and autonomous cars, which will probably be electric, which have far more boards in them. That obviously produces the opportunity. It also produces the challenge, because the automotive industry has notoriously raised the no clean flag high above their building, and we're very proud of the fact that they didn't have to clean anything, because they had an economy of scale so great that they could design for non-cleanability. And now with electric cars, they have to clean. You can't run 1,000 volts through a board and not clean it. So that provides a reliability challenge. And I know I'm running on with this answer here, but just to finish that part up, we have forgotten to drive cars. I have a modern car that has adaptive cruise control, blind spot indicators on it, automatic lane centering. It'll actually take my wheel and steer it. And the first year I had it, I thought it was really cool, and I would always look over my shoulder to see if I agreed with the sensor. I would always, when I'm approaching slowing traffic, hover my foot above the brake just in case the computer didn't see it. I don't do any of those things anymore. I trust the car.
Yeah.
I am not a good driver anymore because I'm using the technology. So now that technology has to work. It cannot fail.
Yeah.
And that means that we have to build the challenge part. We have to build boards to be very reliable.
Yeah.
And I've got another take on IoT, but I want to hand the baton off.
We'll come back to IoT, because I think actually IoT is a really interesting challenge. With respect to automotive, you operate in that industry as well as all the other electronic spaces. We have stopped, and none of us can find our way anywhere anymore. I go back to the same hotel most evenings. I know the way, but my nav still wants to take over and tell me the way, and it wants to take me a different way because maybe Google's getting paid for me to go past a particular coffee shop or whatever. Are we too reliant on that kind of technology? And is that the case not just in our personal lives, but also in our business lives, in things like supply chain management, things like factory management?
Well, I don't know about are we too reliant on that in factory management and stuff. In fact, I'm going to go a little bit different direction with that question when it comes back up. In terms of our personal lives, yeah, I think maybe. I've got an 11-year-old son at home, and he is just so technology-centric. And, Grandma lives 3 miles away, and I don't know that he knows how to get there. Because, one, he'll plug in the directions, but two, he's just fascinated by watching the GPS and these things that help us. I had a customer meeting in Pasadena, and this might be 2 years ago, and I left my phone on the plane. So I get off, and I got to grab an Uber. Well, can't grab an Uber. I should call them and tell them I'm running. I can't call them. I don't even know how to find them. I don't even remember the guy's name. I mean, my life was on that phone, and I was without a phone for 12 hours. And, I might as well have been, smacking Flintstones together, right? I mean, I was not functional. Yeah. And, heaven forbid, we lose some satellite someday or get a big EMP from the sun or something. Yeah, I do think in our general lives, we've forgotten how to do some of the basic stuff.
Yeah.
I think in manufacturing, it's a little bit different. I actually think that the biggest opportunity and the biggest risk for the EMS sector is Industry 4.0.
Yeah.
And Industry 4.0, let's talk about it from a risk perspective. I haven't been to the show in a couple of years. There is a lot of 4.0 technology that's coming together, and nobody's really integrated it completely, but a lot of the disadvantages of being a small, I own my own stuff kind of shop, a lot of the places where economies of scale mattered in equipment utilization, for example. I mean, the two big leverages have always been material spend and equipment utilization. A lot of that is going away. So a lot of this equipment technology in 4.0 is leveling the playing field back towards small to mid-sized people. Do I want to do some of this myself? I was talking to the ASM guys and the Juki guys, and nobody's ever been selling more equipment in the U.S. Just in the last couple of years. So I think that's a potential threat. I also think it's the biggest opportunity for them ever.
Yeah.
If they get that right, there's so much more manufacturing that they can take over. There's so much more cost they can take out of the system. There's still an awful lot of medical that hasn't been outsourced, and it's because the level of lot traceability and controls and stuff. And in the end of the day, it was, who had the biggest stack of paperwork for the FDA. And now so much of that can be automated. And I think the people that really embrace Industry 4.0 as it is going to be a fundamental operating premise for everything we do, I think can pursue some business opportunities in EMS that even some of the really good manufacturers don't have the technological capability to pursue.
Yeah, and I think you're right. For me, one of the biggest opportunities and threats is digital transformation. Digital transformation, if you get it right, you can be ahead of the game. But what I see is too much talk and not enough action. Is that something you've been on this Industry 4.0 journey with everybody else for 5 or 6 years? We have very few proof cases.
Yeah, I see production lines here that are CFX or Hermes or whatever the standard of the moment is, and it is all very impressive, and I don't see much of it in the field yet, but it is certainly, the buzz is there, the production is starting, the standards are becoming harmonized, I guess, and we'll see something, but it's still not. I think we'll see it in major equipment groups, and the more fringe stuff like what we make will lag behind.
Yeah, and that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we've talked about this before, but your customers, you're in the area of cleaning boards, and your customers are saying, hey, can I get that? Can I get a smart version of that or a connected version of that? It comes back to your issue of IoT. There's points that it's great to connect, and there's just sometimes where you don't need a smart everything. We don't need necessarily a smart carport. Not everything needs to be device.
It's not always a smart idea to make a mug a connected device, right? I mean, the fact that we can doesn't necessarily mean we should. And I think that is one of the challenges with our industry and one of the opportunities in our industry. If we start putting chips in every mug, we're going to start selling more chips. That's good. However, a lot of the expansion of IoT is in class 1 consumer devices, cheap stuff, right? Connected toothbrushes, connected footballs, connected the ring doorbells. These are not class 3. These aren't space category stuff. This is fairly cheap consumer stuff. And we're putting electronic assemblies in them, and then we're taking them outside with us and bolting them to the outside of our house or punting them, on a football field or whatever we're doing with it. And they're not built to class 3 standards. They're built to class 1 or maybe 2. But they have to be built better because harsh environments and shock and vibration and all these things that wearables and much of IoT is comprised of is challenging on a circuit assembly. So I think we're going to see all the things we enjoy that are cheap start rising in cost or start becoming highly unreliable. I would never find this to be unreliable. However, if that becomes a connected device that warns you when the drink is cool, this can now become unreliable, right? And we've never had a problem with mugs before. We kind of have a deal with mugs. As long as they don't leak, they're reliable. And so we can take products that have low expectations for reliability and function and turn that upside down. I think that's part of the challenge of it.
Yeah, and it kind of plays back to what you were talking about with the automotive, because what we're doing is taking a situation with a car where if something went wrong, it was maybe the carburetor or it was maybe something in the drive chain. Now it's likely to be one of the computerized things that's gone wrong. When you look at that from a point of view of supply chain design and building a manufacturing footprint for someone, Ron, are people coming to you with unrealistic expectations of a low cost of manufacture regardless of process? Are they designing to a budget, not designing to be fit for purpose? Is that something you see?
I think that most of our customers believe that they are in very price competitive environments, and therefore price should be one of the top factors. When we're finding a supplier, when we're issuing a piece of business, we have this process we go through and we weight the different things. And our customers generally weight, price very high. And yet we have customers where if we were to take an external view, we have some where you go, look, I get that is relatively sensitive. You sell that finished good in a clamshell with the electronics and the battery for $1. I get that that's price sensitive. But, when you're talking about a $99 consumer electronics device and you're talking about, the difference between, a 36 and a 37% margin, around the edges there, you can do a little bit more with the data, with the quality, with getting a better product, getting better data, getting better communication, getting a better ability to manage it. Yeah. And so what you can do is you might be able to pay a little bit higher price and take money out of the overhead of managing the contract manufacturer, or managing the system, or having lower returns. But that's a second order effect, right? When I write that purchase order, most purchase orders today are written to 3 decimal places, right? It's not $69.50, it's $69.50.3. I know that number. I know that number to 3 decimal places. How much I'm going to save by the fact that I have a much more responsive supply chain and I have more flexibility about changing the build window so that I'm not sitting on excess and inventory and things like that, that's harder to identify. And so I don't know exactly how to quantify it, so I am going to rank that lower than what is absolutely perfectly quantifiable, which is price, which is just a long way of saying more people think price is more important than in reality it is.
Yeah, so it's the full cost that has to be calculated. Going back to Mike's point, I'm curious if you ever get a phone call from someone that says, hey, we're going to build this connected baseball bat, and you have to just put them on hold, laugh out loud before you continue the call. Does that happen where you just think, why?
I shouldn't say this, and I'm sure our sales and marketing guys are going to get on me about this, but I mentioned earlier I have an 11-year-old who is quite the little technologist. And so I got a 73-page product proposal from a customer. Hey, we're ready to build this. We need you guys to help us find a supplier. And I'm sitting there reading it right before dinner, and my son's like, why are you laughing, Dad? You never laugh when you're at work. You're a very serious guy. I'm like, it's just kind of funny. Can I see it? No, you're the mechanic. I showed it to him. 73 pages. And he goes, well, what does it do? I go, I don't know. Well, does it interface? I don't know. I mean, it was literally a 73-page deck. We're ready to go to production. I couldn't tell you a price target. I couldn't tell you a feature set. I couldn't tell you what material. I mean, it was really this kind of warm, fuzzy industrial design / marketing, how I want my product to make you feel. And this company had never launched an electronic product, and they thought I could take this deck and tell them where to build it and how much it was going to cost. And they truly had no idea. I still don't know what this thing does. Maybe it does cool stuff, but I think if it did really cool stuff, I could have at least discerned part of that. But it was connected to something, but I don't know what.
You talk about your 11-year-old being, technically savvy. Someone told me a phrase yesterday, which I love, and I'll steal it. It's our generation are technology immigrants, and our kids are technology citizens.
Yeah,
that's good. I like that.
Yeah, they're digital natives, and we are the immigrants in that situation. Clearly, some exciting opportunities, some exciting challenges coming up. Look forward to talking about them more with both of you. But in the meantime, thanks very much for stopping by today. Thank you.